Okay, we're going to begin our session. Hello and welcome to today's webinar entitled Smarter Service Conversations Lead to Sustained Growth. I'm Nicole Sanders and I'll be running the technical side of today's event. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We have a really great session in store for you. Before I introduce today's speakers, I just want to run through a few logistics. I know a number of you, probably all of you join webinars, but every platform is a little different. So just to make sure you have the best viewing experience on ours today, let me talk through these. Right now you're logged into WebEx and our opening slide is showing there. There's a green bar at the top of your screen, and if you hover over that, you have a couple of options. You can chat with myself, the host, or using the little drop-down arrow to the right, you can select the Q&A panel. And we welcome you to submit any questions throughout the presentation, but we will be answering those at the conclusion of the session. I will be available to address any technical problems or questions you may have, so you can go ahead and submit those to the host if needed. And lastly, we are recording today's presentation, and we'll make it available to all of you in the next few days. We always post it on the ServiceMax website under our resources section, and within resources we have a recorded webinars. So now I'd like to introduce today's speakers. First of all, Aly Pinder is joining us. He's a senior research analyst for the service management group at Aberdeen Group. Aly researches and explores how service and manufacturing executives utilize technology and implement best practices to improve post-sales service and support processes. He does benchmarking and analysis of Aberdeen's research database, and he talks about how best-in-class service organizations are re-engineering their service chains for improved performance and increased profitability. So it's always great to have Aly join us for our webinars and share this great industry benchmark information, which I know many of you are probably here to hear about. Also joining us today is Chris Fratta. He's the Vice President of Service for Elekta in the EMEA region. We're really happy Chris could join us today. They're a happy ServiceMax customer, and I think it's always important to be able to hear from those practitioners in the field that are really going through the day-to-day challenges and for us to gain some insight there. So Chris is responsible for all of service throughout that region. He has over 15 years of experience in the healthcare industry, and like I said, we're just really happy to have Chris with us today. And the format of this presentation is going to be a little bit of a back and forth between Aly and Chris, so just so you know, that's the format of the presentation. And then finally, Susan Tonkin will be joining at the conclusion of the session. She's our Senior Product Marketing Manager here at ServiceMax, and she's a regular webinar speaker with us. She's spearheading analyst relations and product launch activities at ServiceMax, and prior to ServiceMax, she worked for over a decade in marketing at cloud and enterprise software companies such as Saba and Extensity. So we're happy to have Susan with us as well. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Aly, if you want to transition and take us through the start of the presentation.
Great, and thanks, Nicole. And once again, hi and welcome to everyone on the call. Once again, my name is Aly Pinder, Senior Research Analyst here at Aberdeen. And over the next 25 minutes or so, I plan to provide you with a very brief overview of the Aberdeen research methodology. As you can see here, provide some context around the state of the service market, identify service revenue opportunities, detail the need for a connected service organization, take a look at IoT. I know it's a big buzzword out there right now, but we want to dive a little bit deeper into it, and wrap up with some key takeaways. And once again, as Nicole mentioned, throughout, Chris will provide some real-world insights as to how the data points I share align with his business. So quickly, who is Aberdeen and how do we collect such great best practices? Aberdeen is a third-party market research firm which conducts primary research through surveys on a given set of topics. Our analyst team collects data from practitioners like you all on the phone, and we analyze these findings to create research content. We survey end users organizations across a variety of industries and of all company sizes. In particular, I take the lead on service management topics that consist of service strategy, field service, service parts, and mobility. All the research you will see from Aberdeen comes through the lens of two frameworks, the first of which is our PACE methodology, which looks at the pressures that impact an organization, highlighting the actions that organizations take to mitigate these pressures, and then look at the internal capabilities and technology enablers that organizations implement to excel. We then dive into what you see here, which is our best-in-class maturity framework. In each of our studies, we ask a series of KPI questions and determine the top 20% of performers, which are the best in class, the middle 50% being the industry average, and the bottom 30% being the laggards. From this framework, we can then reevaluate pace and build a roadmap for success for organizations, highlighting how an organization can move from laggard or underperforming to industry average and eventually to the best in class or top performers. And as we all understand that even the best in class can always improve, so we also provide recommendations on how the best can get better. Now that you have an understanding as to how we conduct research, let's dive into what you all joined this webinar for, the data, best practices, and opportunities for growth. First off, why is it important that we all care about service, and why are we searching for ways to improve the conversations we have with our customers? Number one on that list is competition, right? No longer is service just a cost of doing business. Service for many companies is the business and is one key way to differentiate from competition. In days of the past, the company could innovate with products alone and drive the market. Now products are a single entry point to a customer spend, but service can be a way to show value to customers throughout their life cycle. And as you can see, customers are demanding more value from the service organization and the manufacturer. They expect that you will continue to look for ways to improve not only the speed of service, but also the value they are getting for this interaction. It is important that we don't forget the customer compares the service they receive against not only your direct interactions, but also against all services they receive. So even if your business is heavy equipment or medical devices, you're being compared every day to offerings from Domino's Pizza, where you can track the entire pizza from oven to your door, or that boutique hotel that doesn't even have a reception desk. It's all self-service and seamless and mobile. You're compared to all of them. And just to further build a case as to why you should care about competition or what your customers think, happy customers drive revenues and profitability. And I know that that may seem like a fairly straightforward point, but I think it often gets missed as we make doing business with us more and more difficult for customers, or we disregard the fact that without our customers we would all be out of work. The best in class have been able to directly tie customer satisfaction to their ability to drive increased revenue opportunities through service. And these top performers are not only turning happy customers into one-time purchases. Year over year, they are able to drive improvements in total service revenue and profitability. And I think profitable growth is obviously integral, but just driving costs out of the business should only be one part of the equation, as too much cost cutting could result in stripping value out of the service offering with the bathwater. So companies that can drive up the revenue side of the equation have found the secret sauce to getting customers bought into value. And Chris, I believe you had some interesting insights into this capability.
Yeah, thanks for that, Aly. So just a few details from my side on sort of how this is translating to increased demands on us in MedTech service. I think one of the really interesting things is that demands on our customers themselves are changing quite a bit. In healthcare, there's a demographic phenomenon where people are just living longer than they've had at any point in history and developing chronic diseases which require extensive treatment. Also, there are emerging economies around the world where people are finally obtaining access to healthcare in ways that they never had before. So all of this translates into an increasing demand for my customers, and at the same time, spending is constrained. Another thing that's happening in the customer world is that the change in the way they measure success. The Affordable Care Act is an example of of what's driving that in the U.S., but generally there's a shift towards improved patient outcomes and patient satisfaction, where in the past it might have just been things like throughput or number of tests performed. And I think there's also a complexity around the products that manufacturers are developing and producing, and the need for these products to be interconnected with each other and over a network. What that is translated for a MedTech service provider is that there's lower tolerance than ever before for machine downtime. So there's increased demands for speed of response, speed of resolution, even things like extended hours of coverage. So as healthcare providers are trying to cope, they're beginning to work late evenings, Saturdays, Sundays, and they're expecting us to support them over those times. And it's not just in break-fix, but also beyond break-fix. I think successful service providers are able to help customers adopt the advantageous features of their products. So in the past, service was more about break-fix and showing up when things went wrong. And now more than ever, it's about helping to take advantage of features in the product that do things like simplify workflow, automate manual tasks, mistake-proof data entry, et cetera. And finally, I think product integration has become more important than ever before, not just that one manufacturer's products talks to the other products that they might make, but across modalities and across vendors and even across networks. And when customers have an issue with those interconnected products, they're expecting or they appreciate when a vendor can come in and solve those problems. So it's an opportunity to differentiate, and if you can solve problems up and down the interconnected product suites, then you're more valuable as a service provider. So those are just a few examples, Aly, of how the state of play is changing for medtech customers and how that's impacting us on the service side.
Thanks, Chris. And I think you bring up quite a few of the challenges that many organizations, I track are seeing. I think one of the key areas is that your customers' expectations are changing into outcome-based service, and the complexity of delivering that high-value service is also changing. And I think that echoes throughout many of the slides I'm getting ready to show you. The conversation with customers has had to change, and we need to get smarter at delivering service. So thank you, Chris. And first off, when we look at ways that organization is changing and driving at these new service revenue opportunities and conversations, I think the conversation shouldn't end at the point of sale of equipment or machine. Service conversations should and must occur throughout the life cycle. Otherwise, you're expecting a pretty big sale up front. And obviously, equipment sales can be a high-value proposition, but why not look at driving recurring revenues throughout the sales cycle? And I think this slide shows, 1/3 of service contract revenue actually can be achieved after the sale. And this depends on having the team, the technology, and process in place to engage customers about service after the equipment leaves the warehouse. How many organizations have field technicians that sell or have automatic triggers that notify sales or marketing of an expiring contract, or even better yet, provide incentive specific for service contract renewals? Customers value service, and there's a clear opportunity to have service conversations beyond the upfront sale of a machine or a piece of equipment. But what should you be selling? Now, imagine many of you on this call are well aware of how best to engage with your particular types of customers, but I wanted to share with you some of the ways top-performing service organizations and manufacturers were building value for customers. The top performers sold the following services to customers: audits, installation services, consultation, training, and maintenance of competitive equipment were just a few of the ways that the top-performing organizations found new revenue streams. And these additional services require some level of sophistication by the service organization. You need to have the data, the skills, and the team to be able to provide audits, consultation, and training and have those right discussions. But you also need to have the partnership and trust of your customers to engage in this manner. Sophistication also requires that you have the right person or team to have this interaction at the right time. If you have an automatic sales call triggered based off of an expiring contract, but that customer just had multiple asset or equipment failures in the last 2 weeks, I don't think it would be a good time to make that call or make that pitch for a renewal or additional services. It's imperative that the table stakes be addressed and flawless service is delivered, and only then can these additional offerings be well received. So those are just some of the ways organizations are getting creative around how they can sell value to customers. But what I think is really interesting is that 3/4 of top performers develop and offer new services to customers beyond that which is in the initial contract. As Chris stated earlier in his earlier piece, isn't innovation something that can extend beyond just product? And I think service and field service has an opportunity to reach that goal. We're all smart people who have great ideas, and I also believe that service has an ear and the closest relationship with customers. So service should be empowered to identify, pitch, and launch new ways to solve customer problems. Top-performing organizations are beginning to have teams and service workers dedicated to thinking about how service can evolve beyond the tried and true break-fix relationship to deliver newer services for the customer. And as you can see, underperforming organizations are 50-50 in their ability to develop and offer new services to their customers. And once again, as we noted, your customers demand you continue to add value to the partnership. Otherwise, you will continue to see shrinking share of wallet and competition which eats away at your margins. And as you look to innovate within service, I think there are a couple ways you can ensure your service teams have the right conversations at the right time. And I consider it to be broken down into before the service call and during the service call. Because after the service call, you'll probably have a sales or marketer interacting with the customer. But before you get to that after service call, I think that the technician showing up on site needs to have the information necessary to not only resolve the issue at hand, but also know if service is covered, if a contract is up to expire, or if the customer is in need of some extra care. This information for most organizations has always been there, but too often the connection between this level of insight and the actual technician going out on the call were not shared. Top performing organizations, once again, are those that excel at customer satisfaction, margin, and profitability, are making this connection between pre-visit intelligence and the service being offered. The right technician with the right customer insights is the one who is showing up on time. And they are also able to have better conversations. Data isn't stored in the silo, only accessible by a chosen few. The service technician for these top performers has access to insights in real time as they engage with customers. These technicians can use product and equipment performance data to advise or consult with customers as to why performance is suboptimal or why they aren't getting the results they expected. This insight could also unearth a training issue. For example, if a technician notices the failure or break is due to the same issue over and over again, it may be something that can be fixed if the customer does some preventive measures or changes the way they're using the asset. The top performers also ensure that the management team can have smarter conversations with the service team to help them focus on areas of service or more profitable aspects of the service contract. The goal is to make informed decisions and drive the right conversations at the right time. And Chris, I think you have a few good examples as to how you guys at Elekta are doing just this.
Yeah, thanks again for that, Aly. Yeah, just a few details about Elekta that help set the table for this conversation. So Elekta is in the medical device industry, specifically in the space of oncology care. And I'm fortunate that a number of years ago, the company decided to organize service as a profit and loss organization, which means we're very focused on the revenue and profitability of the service business. Our equipment is very complex cancer treatment systems, so it's a big capital asset, and they tend to last for 10 to 15, even 20 years in some of our markets, which means there's plenty of opportunities over the life cycle of the product to go in and pitch service and chase renewals, et cetera. And we're also fortunate that about 3 years ago, we deployed Salesforce.com and ServiceMax. So that means we have one common source of data for customer information, for contract information, for equipment information, et cetera. And that really gave us the foundation to develop a set of tools and a set of dashboards to help us manage the whole service revenue business. And I'm going to show those dashboards or a sample of those dashboards in just a moment. But to give you a flavor for it, we have dashboards that help us manage contracts that have expired and are not yet renewed, contracts that are about to expire, warranties that are about to expire, et cetera, as well as a number of dashboards that help us analyze how well we're doing, in terms of selling price, contract penetration, et cetera. So a combination of these dashboards together with a really rigorous review of the business has helped us to get the right attention on this business cycle and then drive a really positive result. So for us in Region Europe within Elekta, we're achieving double-digit growth rates of our service revenue, and that's outpacing equipment growth on the equipment sales side. So if you could flip, I'll give an example of one of these dashboards. This is just a high-level snapshot, and it's shown me the contracts in my business for Eastern Europe, let's say, that have expired and not been renewed yet. And some of the power of the dashboard is just, it helps you visualize the opportunity. So in this case, the size of the box is indicating how many contracts or what the value of those contracts are that have expired. And the color coding is giving me an indication of the aging profile. have they expired in the last 30 days or in the last 60 days, et cetera. And if there were a more full view of this dashboard, actually in the bottom there's a list of the actual customers and contracts. So these dashboards are dynamic. You can click in a specific area and get some very detailed drill down. And as you might imagine, I'm taking a look at this at a very high level within the organization to see how we're doing. But additionally, I'm reviewing this with the service managers who are responsible. We can quickly drill in and look at specific contracts and what actions have been taken and what the status is. If you flip again, Aly, another example now, this is a more proactive looking dashboard that's looking at what's about to expire. So what's coming down the pipeline. I can see I have 6 contracts that will expire within the next 30 days. What actions are we taking? What data are we taking into those conversations to make sure we can secure them? And I think there's one last view on the next slide, and that is just about warranty. So again, several points over the life cycle of the product where we can be either proactively or reactively going in and having the right conversations to ensure that we're not letting an opportunity slip by to bring more service revenue in. And I think I'll pass it back to you, Aly, for the next section.
Okay, thanks, Chris. And once again, listening to that, I think you definitely talk a lot about a few things that jumped out to me. You talked about one common source of data, value, and the right conversations. And I think that's the type of way all service leaders should talk when they're looking at transforming their business to be much more connected to their customers and have those right conversations. But this whole time we've talked a lot about service and field techs, but I think there is also an opportunity for other functions of the business to help drive better conversations and better value around service when we're delivering service to customers. And those other groups, don't necessarily drive trucks or have wrenches. And these other groups, I believe the primary groups that we need to work with in delivering service are the sales team, marketing, and engineering. So first off, when we look at sales, the sales approach to service often leaves quite a bit of room for improvement. And, not all sellers are like Dwight Schrute, but, sales often gets a bad rap. But I do believe sales has good intentions. It's just that oftentimes the intention is for them to make their own quota, bonus, or commission. So sometimes they might reach for the lowest hanging fruit without looking for ways they can listen to customers and add value through service offerings. But as you can see here, the greatest impact to driving additional service revenue should be through the sales force that is dedicated to service and one that is incented to work hard at selling the value of service. But as visibility is key, you need to also look to the field team and making sure, as Chris noted, the field team also has visibility into contract status and the way in which they're managing the conversation with customers. It's important for them to know about renewals in advance and be able to have the right conversations when they're getting on site. And all these aspects are ways that you can improve your overall ability to sell service contracts. But more so than anything else, the sales team follows the money. So if you want to sell more service contracts and drive service revenue, but also ensure your sales team is even offering this value in customer conversations, you need to show them the impact to their wallets that service can drive. Incentives help cement the thought that a product sale is great, but recurring service revenue is better for the sustainability of the organization. And without incentives, you may find your sales team is actually giving away service for free, which is never a good thing. We all know there's a lot of value in service, but your customers will jump at the opportunity to get it for free. So you want to make sure that you put in the right incentives. If you look at giving service away for free, that's a very short-term proposition for the sales team, and it impacts service greatly and the profitability of the business. Top performers are also incentivized in the right behaviors around warranties, a lot of what Chris stated earlier, but the impact here is that the sales team is making good sales up front, which down the road pays off in claims processing. So we looked at sales, but what about the marketers on the team? The link between initiatives which impact or connect with customers should all be linked. I hope your organizations, first of all, have a strategy to coordinate service and marketing, but I also think both sides need to value each other's efforts. The best in class create a true team which is informed and collaborative in each other's worlds. The marketing team is not only aware of what service is doing, they actively have insight into the latest offerings and value propositions. As you all know, it is very difficult to sell something you don't understand. The best-in-class ensure this is not the case for their marketers or their sellers. And it is great to sell service and to market service, but an organization also must connect the future products to service value. And engineering, like other functions of the business, is filled with smart people, like we all know, but that often times they have their own outlook on the world. The problem is service has a direct view into the world of the customer, and not working with them is leaving a lot of opportunity for continuous improvement on the table. And as I keep stating, competition and customer demands are evolving, and the organization needs to continue to innovate. But innovation should, at least at times, be based on real-life opportunities of the customer in the field, and not just based off of engineering gut feel. And connecting the field to engineering depends on a loop of information flowing back and forth. Up front, the engineering team needs to equip machines and equipment with the capabilities to be smart so monitoring of performance can be tracked, but information that can be gleaned from customers must also be captured and provided back in regard to the product and equipment performance. So both of these channels must be aggregated, and the best-in-class use this insight to make better machines. And better machines don't only mean a piece of equipment which will never fail, which is obviously the utopian state, but machines and equipment which can be diagnosed quickly, fixed efficiently, or even trigger a service call in advance of a failure should all be the type of things engineering explores based on being closely tied to the service organization. We probably won't get to a place where every function of the organization thinks exactly like a field technician or a service worker, but I do think the best-in-class connect the various groups to ensure a high level of service is delivered to the customer and that the customers know about the value of the service they are receiving. And as companies try to get at that great insight as to what customers want and need and value, this IoT trend that we keep talking about or hearing about keeps cropping up. And IoT machines with some level of connectivity have been around for a while, but what is changing is how this connectivity is leading to better service resolution and better conversations around the value of service. One of the reasons I state that we are just now starting the service journey for IoT is because even for the best-in-class, once again, those being the top 20% of performers, only about half of their equipment is connected for the purpose of asset management, tracking, maintenance, and service. And that number drops to just about a third for the rest of the companies. With only half of equipment being smart, there's only so much service can do. And now I'm not here, to be a general analyst to tell you what's going to happen in 2020 or 2050, that there will be a certain number of connected devices. But I think we can all agree there will be plenty more connected devices. But what's interesting and what's getting me really excited about that is the service journey that's going to come in place as we connect to more and more devices. As we can see here, organizations are planning to connect to more devices and use more of this insight to drive service resolution, remote diagnostics, and customer interactions. The future of service is one where we just might truly get to that state where customers don't even have to tell the service organization of the failure. And when a technician actually shows up, they will have the right part, the correct skills, and will be quickly able to diagnose the problem, shrinking downtime for the customer. Now, I know I said that the future state for many of us isn't quite there yet, but Chris, I believe you guys at Elekta are doing quite a few really cool things around IoT.
Yeah, Aly, actually it's one of my favorite topics. We're in a good position in Elekta where for the past 5 years or so we've developed our remote service solution, and about 85% of our assets actually are connected today. And what it allows us to do, when a customer calls in for service, the very first thing our support agents will do is connect to the device. And the first thing they do is just verify what the problem is. They're able to see the problem through a customer's eyes. And then they start diagnosing, looking through log files, running service tools, et cetera. And we've got a really high remote fix rate at the moment. About 35% of the problems that get called in, we can fix via this remote connectivity and over the phone. And even the 70% that we don't fix remotely, those cases go out with a better diagnosis. The field technician goes out more likely to have the right part on hand. And so the net effect for the customer is a much faster resolution. So that's how we're dealing with break fix. But, we're also able to monitor the device real time. It's sending alarms and alerts based on system conditions and thresholds that are set. And the other really interesting thing is we can capture data over this device over time. So every day there's a download of a log file, and it allows us to go back in historically and find out what's going on with that machine. So those are some of the things that we're doing today. I think on our roadmap, because we're capturing all this data, we're looking at ways to develop more proactive and predictive ways to service our customers. So we imagine a future where, you know, maybe 10, 15, 25% of the problems that could happen on a machine, we actually know about ahead of time and can call our customers up and say, it looks like this part's going to fail in the next 6 weeks. Can we go ahead and schedule an appointment to replace it before it interrupts their workflow? We're able to improve the way the product is designed by sharing that information with the engineers, as Aly pointed out in this previous slide. And I think probably the most exciting thing is we're able to develop this platform for future value-added services. And to give you an example of that, I understand how my customers are using the equipment in many cases at a more granular level than they do. So I can tell when the system is being used or when it's in standby. I can tell how long it takes them to set up a certain procedure. And that's really useful information to sell back to them and maybe to sell it back with some consulting about how they can run their operation better. Again, helping those customers achieve the outcomes that they're aiming at. So for me, it's just a tremendous enabler of delivering better service, and I think a really interesting future platform to be proactive and predictive and to move towards a more value-added type of relationship.
Thanks, Chris. And once again, I mean, I think you're definitely hitting the ball out of the ballpark when you look at this slide, right? When I hear about IoT, you know, from a marketing perspective or in the news, you know, nowhere on the slide do you have IoT or the Internet of Things, right? It's about connected machines. It's about, you know, faster diagnosis and resolution, data capture, real-time monitoring, you know, moving to actually being proactive and predictive, better serviceability. These are all things that I think we all understand we want to get to, but I believe the IoT and the Internet of Things and our ability to connect to data and machines is actually helping us get there. So the conversation doesn't have to be around the buzzword, but I think the value is definitely in the slide right here. So I definitely want to thank you, Chris, again, for culling down a very theoretical idea from an analyst into, you know, what it actually strategically means for your business. Absolutely. And so with that, you know, I definitely want to leave you all with a few takeaways. I'm going to have a series of them. My slide has a lot of words on it, and you'll get these slides afterwards. But, you know, I just wanted to provide you with some insight into all the things that I think are valuable when we look at service. And first of all, you know, I don't think innovation is only capable of occurring in the bowels of engineering and product development. You know, the service team can actually bring it. You know, they can bring service and value and innovation to the entire team. And as you all know, your teams are filled with people who have great ideas on how to improve. They talk to your customers every day. They interact with equipment and machines in the field, and they actually want to change the organization for the betterment of the customer. You know, so why not let them? I think you should invest and encourage innovation activities within your service team. I also think we need to do more than just listen to our customers. You need to turn their feedback and input into improvements to product, equipment, and the service offerings. You know, we all know that post-service surveys and customer forums and social media monitoring without action is a waste of everyone's time and money, and will actually do more harm as customers feel like that you actually don't care. You need to turn this interaction and insight into continuous improvement. And you know, the third bullet point around all for service and service for all, you know, isn't quite, you know, the Three Musketeers strategy, but I do think the entire organization should at least think about how their roles and actions impact service. You know, once again, service can be your differentiator, your revenue driver, and the path to sustainable growth. And this demands that more than just the service team thinks like a service team member. Marketing, sales, engineering, operations all need to help improve the service being delivered or the products being manufactured or even the products being offered via sales and marketing campaigns. And with the entire team working to deliver for the customer, your organization will be able to differentiate from the competition and drive profitability. You know, as these two aspects, customers and profits, drive the machine, that is the priority of your leadership team. It's important to tie the two together. And finally, you know, the last of these many bullet points, service shouldn't be given away for free, and we all know this, but there's too much value in recurring dollars at stake. But your sales team will only sell what they feel they are incented to sell and what they are knowledgeable about. It's interesting that we have not only, have to, as a service person, wow our customers by delivering exceptional service, but we also have to sell ourselves to the sales team. But it needs to happen. Sales needs to be on board because otherwise we're just working harder and the company isn't reaping the benefits. And Chris, I believe you had a few takeaways.
Yeah, thanks, Aly. Just a few from me, and we'll take it home here. The first is about, as your customers' expectations of service or shift, align your service delivery goals with their KPIs. And a really good example of that is in the past, a lot of my customers wanted to enter contracts where there was a penalty if I didn't meet system uptime. And now we're working towards incentives if they meet their patient throughput goals. So it's a way to change the conversation. Rigorous management of the service revenue, opportunities of a product life cycle leads to sustained growth. We've seen a lot of success with that, as I mentioned. It's just about not leaving it on the table. And the interactive dashboards that we've developed just really aid and really helped us in that process. And finally, remote service is a key enabler. It allows for really efficient and effective ways to do break fix. And I think as you start moving down the journey of proactive and predictive and even value added, it becomes a wow, and it really helps you differentiate your service offering. So those are my takeaways.
Thanks, Chris. And at this time, I'll pass it off to Susan, who's going to take over the rest of the presentation.
Great. Thanks to both of you. Great content today. So my role in the webinar today is to share just a little bit more about ServiceMax as a platform and the details of how we've worked with organizations like Elekta to really transform their field service organization and get some of the benefits that we've talked about today. So at ServiceMax, we describe ourselves as the leader in field service transformation. That's not just us tooting our own horn, but we're a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant. We've been in this space and focused on this space since 2007. And we have more than 500 customers now of various industries and sizes and geographies that we've worked with to really transform their field service organization, turn it into a profit center like Elekta has done. And really that's been our vision from the start, to be focused on field service and deliver the expertise that organizations need in field service. So that's been our history. And when we talk about what it is we offer, what's in the solution that we provide, we organize it around what we call the 4 Ps, and it's processes, products, promises, and people. So there's some field service organizations that provide, some of these capabilities. They just provide the scheduling and dispatch, or they just do work order management, or they're focused on parts transactions. We've really looked at the entire process and believe that provides a lot of value, so that things like contract management, which we talked a lot about today, in making sure that you can renew those contracts and have the right kinds of contracts, service contracts, to be able to offer to grow your service business and grow revenue there. That's been an integral part of our solution. Being able to do things like track what kind of competitive equipment is in place at your customers, so that you can offer service to repair not only your own equipment but competitors' equipment. Be able to note when there's a product or service lead at a customer site that you've been visiting. So having one system that manages the products, the process, the promises like SLAs, and the people in your organization around field service, so that the entire process is holistic, we think is really important. So that's how we've architected our solution and how we deliver it. So extending from the 4 Ps, we've really started to talk about a platform for connected field service, with both the Internet of Things and mobile providing great connectivity to improve the processes around field service. So obviously the mobile revolution with consumer mobile devices becoming very ubiquitous and available, and a great tool in the hands of your field technicians. We were very early to the market with an iPad solution. We have a number of different devices we support now. It's very, very rich and full-featured, so it's not just a light data entry A couple of things that you do, you can really run your entire day, whether it's online or offline, through the mobile device. So that becomes a very important input. And then on the other side there in the gray bubbles, you see the Internet of Things. So we've been working very closely with companies like Elekta. And then with the past year, we've been really formalizing our relationship with PTC, who actually owns the IoT solution that Elekta is working with. It's called Exida, to formalize a smart connected service solution. So PTC has Elekta and Exida and ThingWorx as part of their ThingWorx Converge platform. You see that right in the center of the diagram here, so that we are able to have this pre-built integration with PTC where we can take data from ThingWorx Converge, bring it into ServiceMax, and automatically kick off a service request, create a work order, and have that be an automated process. So as soon as there's a machine issue, that problem alert is recognized by ServiceMax, and we can take it through the service delivery process and have action on it that's immediate, which is an exciting solution to bring to market. We've been working on making this a really seamless integration that's out of the box that you can deploy very quickly. So we're really excited about this joint smart connected service solution. And I just wanted to share some of the impacts that our solutions have had, not only with Elekta, but with our customers across the board. We do a survey annually with our customers around the results that they're getting from using ServiceMax. And these are the average results that we've seen from our customers. So some great improvements in things like service revenue, tracking all of this, understanding where contracts are in the process, where are my warranties. That has had a 22% uplift in service revenue on average with our customers. Things like seeing customer service satisfaction increase 15%, costs down 14%, average time to repair down 18%, and a great increase in productivity across the board, especially with our customers and using the mobility to really give their technicians access in the field and ease that process of managing work orders and checking parts in and out of inventory and all that kind of stuff that has to be done in the field. So great across-the-board improvements from our customers that we see, and we had a lot of numbers larger. I think, Elekta, a lot of your scores were quite higher than the average ServiceMax customer. So we've had a great average result, and lots of companies seeing even higher than these numbers as well. So my last slide to share before I turn it over for questions is to invite all of you to an event that is happening in the new year. It's June 13th through 15th here in San Francisco, and it's called Maximize. And it's our user event, but it's also grown to be one of the largest field, if not the largest, field service events in the world. So we have typically both customers and some prospects attending the event as well. We are planning for 800 plus attendees this year. We've got 35 technology and consulting sponsors, many of them already lined up and ready to go. We always have a number of great breakout sessions, lots and lots of executive level attendees. This is a fantastic event, so make sure you get it on your calendar early. Come on out and join us. You don't have to be a customer to attend. We would love to have you there. So I wanted to make sure I shared the details there.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. And to Chris and Aly, great information in your presentations as well. So now we'll transition to taking questions from the audience. Again, audience, you can go to the green bar at the top of your screen, and if you just hover over that, there's an option with a little arrow there to choose Q&A, and we prefer you use that panel to submit your questions. There were two that came in while the presentation was going on, so I guess we can start with those, and then I'm sure many more will come in. The first one, we'll start off with you, Aly, and then if Chris or Susan, you want to jump in, feel free. The question was, for organizations that are product-centric, how can they benefit from smarter service?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. I mean, I definitely think that that's a question that comes up quite a bit in our research. You know, we all on this call love service, and we deal with it on the day-to-day, but many organizations are actually dealing with trying to lead with service in the product world. I think one way or a couple ways that companies can kind of benefit from the smarter service message or information is if your product business is a product business, that service or that information can help products fail less, right? So connecting that inside information to the product design will hopefully help create new products that won't fail as often in the first place. It also can provide better analytics and reporting for the operations team or design team. I think another way that link between or benefit from smarter service can actually work to, you know, these machines that are out in the field, you know, can, through smarter service, trigger a sales call or a marketing program for the next product to be sold. So once that life of that product that's out in the field is coming to an end, you know, it's important to have that data to come back in the organization that says, you know, it's time for a new product to be sold, a new piece of equipment to go out. And so I think those are, you know, three of the top ways that we've seen, you know, smarter service connect even within a product infrastructure business that leads with product first. But I think the full answer is just making sure that the service is supporting improvement of the product, because that's what the organization wants to sell.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you, Aly. And here's another question that I feel like does come up often. It's, how do you develop the skills of our field technicians to be able to sell service? And so, Aly, again, I'll start with you, and I'm sure, Chris, you probably have had experience in this area, so maybe you want to weigh in on that as well after Aly.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and weigh in first, and I definitely want to hear what Chris has to say too here. But I think from our research, the best in class start with working with HR. So too often when you look at, you know, how you're building the skill set of your workers, we forget about the HR team and the ability to cultivate training and tools in that manner that can support, you know, more of an operational team. I think part of the challenge that we find is that, you know, we have a dispersed remote workforce, and how can we train all of them at the same time? I think one way that can occur is, you know, through mobile training. I think the opportunity to identify your technicians that enjoy selling service and like having those conversations and building that profile of what that technician looks like. I think we shouldn't lump in all technicians as just, quote unquote, wanting to turn more wrenches in a given day, but there are some of your technicians that you can identify as already having those skills to have those conversations, and try to put them in those conversations more often than the technicians who just want to turn more wrenches. And so I think working with HR, leveraging mobility to extend that training and those skills across your diverse and remote workforce, and then identifying those right skills and making sure those technicians get in front of those customers at the right time, I think would be the ways that we've seen it work. But I'd love to hear from Chris too.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Aly. You know, it's a question that we debate quite a bit here at Elekta, and I can tell you that not every service guy would be comfortable or good at making a sales call for sure. We think that the service guys kind of play this role as trusted advisor to our customers. And so customers might, for example, share with them what their procurement plans are for the next year, or where they think they need to make improvements. And so at the moment, what we're trying to do is use the service guys to generate leads that the sales guys can then go and close. So, you know, kind of, we think that if we ask the service guys to close business, there might be some erosion of the relationship. That said, however, you know, certainly things like a service renewal or maybe an upgrade to an existing machine, you know, we think we might be able to prepare the guys to sell some of those more simpler types of products. But if they're not selling, at a minimum, they need to share the information that they gather about that customer and make sure it gets in the hands of a sales guy who can take that and turn it into an opportunity.
Okay, great. Very interesting. I love all the different perspectives. Okay, another question that came in, and this is very geared towards ServiceMax. It has to do with integration. So, you know,
what ERP solutions does ServiceMax integrate with?
Sure, that's a very common question that we get. So first of all, we're built on the Salesforce platform, so we're automatically integrated in with what's the most popular CRM today. So that becomes very seamless if you're using or plan to use Salesforce as your CRM. We have a lot of pre-built integration there. I also talked a lot about our integration with PTC, so we've got a great integration that we've developed for the IoT side of things. But ERP is also a key one to integrate into. So the common ones we see there are integrating into your financial systems for billing, so that when you get sign-off on a work order, you can go ahead and bill for that service immediately. And that's a very common integration that we do. And then we also see a lot of organizations integrate into their ERP inventory system as well. So as you use parts and consumables and products, you can check those in and out of inventory and have that bidirectional integration there. Those are all very common integrations, and we have lots of experience. Our partners have lots of experience putting those integrations together. So they happen in almost every one of our deployments.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, we have, I think, just one last question here. And I don't know, Chris, anyway, how are companies making IoT work for their businesses today? And I think, Chris, you kind of talked about it for Elekta, so I don't know, Aly, do you want to, given how many organizations you probably talk to on a regular basis, provide a little more detail there?
Yeah, sure. I'll take a crack at this, and I would trumpet everything that Chris stated in his presentation. I know he talked about reporting analytics, he talked about remote diagnostics and monitoring, and the changing of, kind of usage pricing model. I think all three of those are definitely areas where, we've seen IoT work for ServiceNow today. But a couple other areas that we found in the research, one I think is really, really cool, and it's something that I'm looking forward to continue to study, is the whole bringing service and the information to design for future serviceability. So embedding future products with that service data to ensure that the future product is easier to service once it gets out in the field. So linking the IoT captured monitoring data to future design of products to ensure that it's more easily serviced in the future by a technician. As Chris stated, we're finding that machines are becoming more and more complex, and so the need to make that process a lot easier for the user of that machine, and then the solver of that problem is, I think, where we're going to see more work done in the future, but it's happening right now. And then the final one is, I think, an area that I tap into a little bit in some of my other research around parts management. I think IoT data right now is being leveraged for some best-in-class organization around automatic disposition of service spare parts. So a triggered event occurs based off of the embedded sensors to know that a machine's going to fail, and that automatically triggers sending a part to the customer site so that when the technician gets there, they have the right part. We know from the data that the number one reason for a failed first visit is not having the right part when you get on site. So this alleviates that whole problem. It avoids having technicians hold bloated inventories within their truck. And so it's able to send the right part there before failure, trigger preventive or predictive service event, and technician gets there and they have the part. So I think those are two ways right now that organizations are leveraging IoT today.
Okay, very good. And as we all have said, we'll continue to see how that transforms. Okay, we did not receive any other questions, so I'll just go ahead and wrap up here. And thank you, Aly and Chris and Susan, for a great presentation today. I appreciate the time you've taken to put those presentations together, and for all of you for joining us. The presentation will be made available to you in a PDF format. We'll make sure we email those that participated today. And if you have any questions later on, you can, I see Aly has provided his direct email information here for ServiceMax. We can coordinate any questions for Chris. Those can come to info@servicemax.com. We'll make sure we get those answers back to you. And we just welcome you to join us on any future events. ServiceMax hosts a number of events, both in-person and webinars throughout the year, and we have some big plans for 2016, so make sure you check our website here in the coming weeks. And with that, that concludes today's webinar. I hope you have a great afternoon and a happy holiday.